Hi, and welcome to the first part of T-Helper. T-Helper is a command line utility that talks to Trello. And the motivation for me creating this utility was to streamline my own operations. I'd like to minimize the effort involved in daily repetitive tasks. Hopefully, you get to learn a lot in this series. So let's dig in. These are some of the things that you will be learning during this particular video. Specifically, you'll be learning API integration. You'll be learning how to apply dry principles, and you will also be learning how to use Python F strings. We will first be installing project dependencies. To do that, we will be creating a virtual environment. After that, we will be installing dependencies, specifically requests, black, pylint, and mypy. These are typical dependencies that you would install in most of your Python projects. Black is a very good linter which gives you a nice formatting of the code which can be built into the VS Code as well. Each Trello board is organized as a collection of lists. Within each list you can have one or more cards. Each of these cards can be assigned to one or more team members. At the same time, you have labels, and each labels can be associated with different Trello cards. There are two important files that we will be creating, api.py and config.py. Since I didn't want to make my credentials public, what I did was I checked in config template. You can clone this file and add in your credentials to ensure that your code works as well. What you also see me do in this video is I'm setting up settings.json file, which is VS Code specific settings that ensures that your code is linted every time you save it. We will now be writing a function called getAllList, and the idea over here is to ensure that our credentials set up correctly, and given a board ID, are we able to fetch all the list on that particular board or not. What you are also seeing in the video is how I'm using F strings in Python. F strings are Python's equivalent of JavaScript's interpolation. Basically, it allows you to embed variables within the strings. This makes your life a little bit easier in a sense that you don't need to concatenate a whole bunch of strings to create like a final string. On here, what you're also seeing is I'm making a get request on a URL. This is basically a Trello endpoint that returns some sort of a JSON response. What we are also doing is we are invoking the function in the latter part of this particular section. Now that we have basic JSON response, what I'm trying to do out over here is interpret what kind of JSON schema does the API support. So I'm pasting in the JSON response onto JSON lint website that formats the JSON in correct manner so that I can see the structure in it. What I have also done in the latter part of the video is I have cleaned up code a little bit. Now that we have getAllList function working, what I've done is I've created another function called getAllCards, and basically given a list ID, it will return all the cards available on that particular list. Having realized an opportunity to refactor, what I did was I returned a function called as getTrelloResponse that serves as a common function that can be invoked for getting the list given a board and then getting cards given a list as well. So that's what we have done. Rather than have two separate functions, we have created or refactored the existing function into getTrelloResponse to achieve this. This is where I want to take opportunity and explain you dry principle. Dry stands for don't repeat yourself, and the rule of three simply says that if you have same duplication in two places, it's fine, we don't need to refactor that. But the moment you have a third place where you are doing that deduplication, it should be refactored into a separate function of its own so as to avoid the code duplication. So that's the principle that we have applied out over here. All we are doing in this final section of the video is that we are displaying some key statistics, namely how many cards are present in each of the list, and we are trying to format it in a way that is more human readable. That's One last thing before we call it a day is we are creating a variable called API base, and this will allow us to switch between, say, a different server or a domain name should we choose to deploy the script on multiple sites. Now that we have basic statistics in terms of number of cards present in each of the list, what would be nice is to have some sort of label summary report, and that's exactly what I'm doing in this particular section. Now that we have basic information, it would be nice to reverse sort it by the counts, and that's exactly what we are doing out over here. We are sorting the dictionary by descending order of the counts. All right, that should be it. We have come to the end of the first part. Hopefully you have learned a thing or two. You can find the link to the GitHub repository in the description. See you soon in the next part. Bye bye.